Well, good morning, everybody. This is Linda from North Central Texas. And I wanted to come out here this morning and feed my birds. I noticed we had hummingbirds. Not this morning, but I saw a couple of them the other day. They come swirling by my head. But I'm going to go out here and fill this feeder up. Well, not fill it up, but I put bird seed in it. I don't like it to fill them up because if it rains, the seed gets all wet. And then the birds will eat it. Because it starts to, it'll start to sour and sprout and that type of thing, and the birds won't eat it then. So I've learned not to fill it up. And I put more in that one than I do the other one because more birds come to this one because when they come feed, it's usually in the shade. So, wanted to give you an update on my moonflowers. Coming up good. That rock garden will be full of them by the time they get up bigger. Now goes my cabbages. Those were the cabbage bottoms. There's all my flowers around my bird bath here. And my okra. 2 okra plants in there. Still don't know about this rose bush. It's hanging on. It's still alive. So if it puts out some leaves, we'll know we're good. I got little purple flowers blooming back here. Those yellow ones will be blooming before long. All of those are those wildflower seed that came up. I had them all over the yard, but I decided to mow the yard because they were kind of straggly. You know, there was one here and go 10 feet and there was another one, so I decided just to leave the big clump back here like I do every year. Got a big one right there with my okra, my rose bushes. They like it here. They're living good. I hope the other one at the end down there will survive. I've been watching it, keeping it watered. And these are putting out new leaves, so they're good. All that brown at the top is new leaves. And that's the white rose or yellow rose, so it does a little differently than the other ones. It's not quite the same. I got my cabbages, look at there. Now those were the actual cabbage plants. And look at all that. Since this weather's changed, everything's starting to grow. Because my yellow squash down in that bucket. I got a zucchini at the top right there. Parsley in the middle one that's just coming up. And I haven't put a squash or anything in there yet. I might decide to put a squash in with that kale because a lot of times the heat will kill the kale anyway. It don't like the hot weather. Got cantaloupe in that bottom one, cabbage, Chinese cabbage up there, cantaloupe in that middle one at the bottom, kale. See how it's turning yellow? It don't like the sun. So I can replace that kale probably with something else before much longer. But everything is going good here in the spring garden. And since I couldn't get hold of the black buckets, they had Easter buckets on sale with the shovels. So I picked up 10 of them. I think I used 2 of them for flower pots and using these 8 for the drain buckets for my totes. I said it looks good with my, and see I made a little decoration out of the little shovels. Because this is my spring garden. I said what looks more springy than the pink colors. And a pretty blue butterfly. And I transformed some sunflowers yesterday. See, they'll make it. They're just kind of wilted down a little bit right now because of the heat, but they'll pop back up in a day or two, I'm sure. And if not, I'll replace them with something else. And there's my romaine lettuce, and I put a mixed pepper there with it at the back. Cucumbers. I'll probably have to get a trellis or some stakes to put up for those cucumbers to grow up on so they don't go all over the ground. Got cantaloupe in that little pot and shark fin squash in the other, in the tote. My watermelons come up. My winter squash. Yellow squash in this one, in the gray tote. And my potatoes, I don't know if they're going to do anything or not. I've got to get more dirt in there. I got to get more dirt in both of these potato bins. And I got all kind of mixed peppers there. Orange bell pepper, red bell pepper, yellow bell pepper, green bell pepper. I got squash, cantaloupe, and a tomato. So we'll see if they grow or survive. And I've got yellow bell pepper coming up down in there. I don't know if you can see it. My cucumbers there. Yellow squash. Cucumbers in this one. I'm probably going to have to put a shade cloth up on that though, because I can already see that the leaves don't like the heat. Got cucumbers there. And I may even put a tomato in with it. The okra has not, no, that's the bell pepper. The bell pepper hasn't come up there yet. My okra's coming up here. I got okra there. A winter squash here. Yellow squash that in that one. So everything is looking good so far if I just keep it watered. My rose bushes are looking good. Whoops. Sorry about that. My cilantro. And you know, the cilantro does not like heat, so I'm liable to move that over in the shade somewhere. I got a super steak tomato planted in this pot right down at the very bottom, and I can't see because but you can see it right there. And y'all know the onions, and those white onions or yellow onions still are not doing much. So I don't know about them. But I got tomatoes in here. That's delicious tomatoes. I got a super steak in that with some kohlrabi. And this is kohlrabi here. I got a golden jubilee in that bucket back there, or that pot. And the holes are big enough in the bottom that when the roots get big, they can go right down through the bottom of that bucket and go into the ground. But I'm doing them this way this year because it'll be easier to keep them watered. Every bit of water that I put in that little pot will go right down into the roots for that tomato. And I did put a banana pepper in the ground right there. Got a delicious tomato there. I got some Roma tomatoes there coming up. Here, let me put this cup down. Oh. And close this thing up a little bit so I can handle it better. I've got basil planted in there. You can barely see it. I've got a tomato in that pot back there behind it. I've got tomatoes planted here already. They're little bitty ones. I think that's a pepper, but that's a tomato there. Oh, can't see if I'm showing it to you. There it is right there. And look at all those bell peppers. That's red bell pepper right there. I'm going to have to start weeding those out and put them in other spots because that's too many to grow in a handful right there. And I wanted to put tomatillos in this big blue bin as soon as they're big enough to put over there. I saw they are sprouting. There's the tomatillos right there. You can see, I guess you can see the sun is shining, so you can see the sprouts coming up. They're just starting to come up. And I got tomatoes back here coming up. I got a tomato planted here with my peas. And I don't know about those potatoes. They're not doing a whole lot. The bugs ate the leaves off of this one in the front bag. That one back there's still growing, but they're not doing a whole lot. And I got tomatoes in this one coming up. I guess you can see that. And I don't remember what I put there. It's either a winter squash or yellow squash or some of that in with my peas. I got a yellow squash there with my leeks back there in the buckets. And look at here, y'all. As little as these are, I'm getting peas started on my vines. I won't have many. I don't imagine, but oh, that thing has got to go around here. It don't like to go where I want it to go. And see the bloom right there? It's fixing to put out a pea there. I think those are the snow peas. But they might be enough for me to pick and just put in a stir fry or something. Because I got peas there and I got peas in this end. And I was going to have them grow up around this trellis. So we'll see. I never do get very many peas. And I put little tomatoes in this to try to help them. Help them along a little bit. Cilantro. I got dwarf tomatoes coming up down in here. Don't know if I showed you that before. Let's see, there's some right down in there. And they'll have to be thinned out. I'll have to move some of them over to the holes where there's not any coming up, I guess. And there's one down there. Don't know if you can see it with the light. But I thought the dwarf tomatoes would look good growing in there. There's one there you can see. I guess the light's shining on it. But anyway, I should have a green stalk tower full of tomatoes and Brussels sprouts. And I got a tomato planted there. There's a cucumber in that pot, but something ate it, so I had to spray it yesterday. I've got kohlrabi there. Big old sunflower, and I got a brandywine tomato planted back there in the back. It's real little. Actually, there's two plants coming up. I got a sweet banana pepper planted in this pot, right there in the middle. I've got squash. Look at there. I've got squash. Bell pepper right there. And I've got another squash plant there. I didn't put a tomato in here again this year. I might still do that, but I think that's going to be enough with 2 squash plants and a bell pepper. Sunflowers are growing in here, and I've got gladiolas growing in here, so that might be enough for that one. I've got my bok choy here. It's looking pretty good. I've got some lettuce right there. Probably needs to be watered again. I've got, let's see what this is. Cherry bell radish right there in that one. And I've got my lettuce in this. Remember the tray of lettuce seed that was coming up? I transplanted it into this dish pan. So I'm hoping it'll do okay. I've got tomatoes there, and if I don't have the tomato plant, which I've got one, I've got tomato seed there. I've got a super steak right there. I got seed put out in the other hole. And I've got a eggplant, marigold, and a crimson watermelon there. So that'll be interesting. I've got an eggplant in the middle. I've got an okra. I think I got a bell pepper. Well, these all may be the eggplant. I got 4 or 5 little tiny bitty eggplants coming up with the okra. And I've got Brandy Boy tomatoes here. There's one. Where's the other one? There it is. Those are the ones that get so tall, and they have the little cherry tomatoes on them. And I got a Roma tomato there. I've got a delicious tomato right there. I've got a gold bell pepper in that little square pot. I've got a Roma tomato planted behind it in the big tote. And I've got a Roma tomato right there. So there's 2 Roma tomatoes in the gray totes, and there's the bell pepper in the little square one. I got a bell pepper here in the bucket. I've got, I think these are Brandywine grape tomatoes. I got 2 plants in here. I got a pepper here. I got a bell pepper. I've got a cherry tomato and an okra in the pot. So that'll be interesting to see how that grows. And my blueberry bush is looking good. I don't know if it'll have blueberries on it yet. It's kind of small, but it's not supposed to get very big. And then I've got a delicious tomato planted back there, 2 of them actually. You can barely see them though, they're so small. But those 2 little green things, they're about 3 inches apart, 3 or 4 inches apart. That's a delicious tomato. And this is a Brandywine here. I've got 2 Brandywines in this tote. I think that's a it's a Brandy Boy. That's the one that got so tall in this basket last year with this red trellis. It grew up to the top of the trellis, and then remember it fell over and it went all the way to the ground. And it was producing tons of tomatoes all summer long. Even in that extreme heat, it survived over here in the partial shade. That's one reason I made these trellises so tall, is because I've got these tomatoes, some of them that get so tall it's unreal. So if that tomato over there gets very tall, it can just climb right up that trellis. I mean, I don't know that it will, but we'll see. I've got a yellow squash there. I got a yellow squash here. I've got a Roma tomato plant here, and that looks beautiful. That's one of the first seedlings that came up. And of course, you've seen all my cabbages that were here. Look at that. I could harvest leaves right now, but I really didn't want to start harvesting them yet. And yeah, I've kept them covered because about the time I was going to take the covers off, I noticed, here, let me put this tripod down so I can put that cover back on it. I mean, I'll take them off eventually, but I put too much work in these things for those bugs to eat them. So that's why I keep them covered. And it keeps all that junk from the trees from falling in them. Because see what I noticed happened to this one? After that last rain, something got in there and really was going to town on the leaves. So I did spray it with a little bit of vegetable spray just so the bugs wouldn't eat the plant completely up. But that one looks beautiful in there. And my carrots. My carrots there. My beets. So I've got 3 spots where my beets are. I've got a bucket and I got 2 tubs of beets. And look at here, my okra's all coming up in my blocks. That's an okra right there. That's an okra. Right there. That's an okra. And there's some coming up all along there, and some of them are just beginning to sprout out of the ground, so you can't see them that well. I've got a golden jubilee. Actually, 3 of them in there. Tomato. And I've got a brandy boy back there behind it. So you can see why I've got this tall trellis. Because I'm going to need it if those plants survive. And there's my beets. I've got a brandy boy back there in that green tote. Well, not the bucket. And I've got another super steak in that yellow. And see, I've got big holes in the bottom. Like I said, so when I water it, all my water goes into the pot where the tomato plant is. And then later when the roots get big, the roots will leave the pots, go into the ground, but the water will go right with them every time I water that bucket or the pot. I got an early dew melon, 2 of them planted here in this tote. They're little, but they're there. And I've got a delicious tomato right there in that little one. And again, you know, the roots will go through the bottom of the bucket. And there goes my raspberry. And I've got kohlrabi, I think that's what that is there, or one of the oriental cabbages or lettuces, I forget, because I didn't mark it. My beets. Beets are looking good. I don't know if they'll bulb up, but the tops are looking good. I've got a yellow squash there. My mint, of course. And you ought to know, I put tomatoes there and I forgot to mark it. But I tried to put ones there that will grow up tall, so they'll go up on these arbors. I know that is a sweetie cherry right there with a bell pepper. So it gets pretty tall. And I think that's a sweetie cherry, or one of them that grows big. Don't remember. And I got cucumbers, tomatoes, and everything else planted there. I've got cilantro. And I did throw out a few seeds yesterday. That's a straight 8 cucumber right there. That's a straight 8 cucumber there in the pot. And I planted seed in the tote, and y'all don't know, I didn't mark it. I got a yellow squash there, cilantro. I got a cucumber plant back there, straight 8. And I put seeds in the tote, and I didn't mark that either. I'm getting bad about not marking stuff. I've got cilantro, I've got a sunflower, and I put seeds there. I've got a muncher cucumber in that white one, and I put seed in the other. Cilantro, and I put seeds. And there is my early dew melons coming up. Muncher cucumber there. My pumpkin. Muncher cucumbers up here on the top. Muncher cucumber there. And an early dew melon at the bottom. So I'll probably stake those up a little bit. I'm not sure yet. I got yellow squash. Well, that's zucchini in this one. And I put a marigold in there. This is yellow squash. And I think I put a bell pepper in there too. the bell pepper or tomato. I've got a dwarf tomato in the little yellow bucket. It's a little bitty one. It's just coming up. Yellow squash. And I got a yellow squash there. And I'm getting ready to take these artificial flowers out of there, and I'm going to plant something in that pot and put it back on that table out there. I just haven't decided what I'm going to put in it yet. But I planted muncher cucumbers in the center. You can see it just coming up. And I got yellow squash on each side. My mint. Clematis, and I put a yellow squash there. Because clematis likes something that grows at the base where their roots are. It helps keep it shaded and cooled in the heat of the sun. So we'll see how that works. And I put yellow squash right there. So that should help keep it shaded out. And look at my flower seeds all coming up in here. I've got marigold, marigold, zinnias, all kind of flower seed in here. I think I even threw a couple of sunflowers in there. I might have, I'm not sure. Don't remember. And I got my mint out here. And I might put a tomato plant in there with that too. I'm not sure. But what I've got to do is take all of these artificial flowers out of this pot. And put real flowers in them. It's already got dirt. I mean, they're pretty, but I'd love to have something real growing in it. And I've got I've got my shed key hidden. So I got to go over here and get these flowers and get them put in the shed. I can put them out another time when I need them. When I don't have anything that'll grow. And I've already come to the conclusion I'm probably going to have to dig out the live trap out of the shed and set it to catch that possum and take him and let him go live somewhere else, because I don't want him eating my plants this year. And that's exactly what he's going to do if I don't catch him. Get some of this wood chips out of here first. And I can always put more back after I get something planted in here. I mean, this is the same way I had to do my totes. I took some of the wood chips out, or either scraped them to the side so I could plant stuff in it. And I'm just loosening up the dirt. I guess you can see it. Let me check my view here. It's just not very good because the sun is coming out. Probably need to move it some. Maybe I'll move it back up here so we're in the shade a little bit. I can always bring the water over here too. How is that? Yeah, you can see that pretty good. At least you can see it better than you could in the sunshine. And I'm just going to get some compost tea to water it. I like to get my dirt wet before I plant in it. And I put way more than I need to in there. But it's been kind of dry, so I want it to get it wet good. And I really need to get some cardboard to put in there. Because the cardboard will help hold the moisture, and it also acts like plant food to the plants. just stick it down in there. Get it as far down in there as you could get it. And I know this is a self-watering pot, but no, I don't want that one in there. It's got don't want the tape in there. I could have just dumped that out and put the cardboard right in the bottom, but oh well. I always do things backwards anyway, so. I put way more water in there than I needed because I just wanted it to soak good. And then I'll drain a little bit of the excess out. And you can put your green matter in there the same way. If you have green matter to put in there, like grass or cabbage or collard leaves or anything of that nature. And I want to go over here and get some of my loose fitting soil, you know, where the leaves are broken down over here, and put some of that in the top of it too. That's a good thing about raking your leaves up around your pots to keep the grass from growing. Those leaves will break down, and that with the combination of the cardboard that I put in there and the natural dirt makes the best soil for your pots in the world. I'm going to go over here and see if I can pull out a couple of marigolds. I've got a bunch of them in this pot here. Way too many. And I'm just pulling them out, but I'm trying to be real careful. That's 3. Let's see if I can get this turned around. Put 3 of these in there. Because I don't remember if they're the dwarf ones or if they're the large ones. If they're the large ones, they're going to get pretty big. So there is enough water in there that I don't have to water those. And like I said, as they get bigger, I can put wood chips back in there to help keep the soil cool. And as you can see, I've been cleaning my totes up. The clear totes that I had in the shed that I used to show everybody how you can make a miniature greenhouse. You don't have to have a greenhouse big enough that you walk in. I took those out and washed them, put it there to dry. I've got one that I put away in the shed already, and I got one more out there that I've got to wash and put up. Haven't done that yet. But I can't pick that pot up with one hand. So what I'm going to do is move the camera first. Move the camera here. You can see that I'm going to walk all the way down and put the pot at the other end. And then I might go around the back to see if I can find some more flowers to stick in here. It needs to be washed off. I'm back. Once it gets full of dirt and wet, it's too heavy. I have to use both hands. And I need to get a thing of water. I water that big pot. Sorry about that. It's just impossible to carry the camera around every time. But I'm going to go right here and water this big one that's got all these flowers in it. Some of these get wet and they kind of flop over from the weight of the water. See if I can help them stand back up. Shake some of the water off of them. There. There, so I've got just about everything planted that I'm going to plant. There's only one or two things back there that are still in a little starter cup. And that's peppers, and there's one or two tomato plants. But I've got to fix a place to put them. I don't have any more space to put them. So we'll have to wait and see what survives and what doesn't. Because I may have to like replant some things, and I'll have those few as backup plants. And there goes my collards back here, my tree collards. I put them back here. I thought they might like the sun, and I put the netting over them to keep the bugs and the caterpillars off of them. I may have to move them, you know, I don't know. They may be getting too much sun. I'm not sure how collards do with too much sun. But I planted this, I think it's with kohlrabi or one of those, and I got that little dish pan out there planted full. So see, I've got everything planted that I've got a space to plant until I make fix another pot or another toad or something. Or something doesn't make it and I have to replant something. And look at there. Those are producing babies at the top. Those are the walking onions. Oh, and I wanted to show you the progress on the walking onions over here that I showed you the other day that had just started to walk. Those Egyptian walking onions. I'm sorry, I'll probably make you dizzier and I'll get out. But see here? See how it came so far up that stalk? It started at the bottom. All of them did. Look at that. It'll come all the way to the top and then it'll burst open with a little clump of miniature onions. See, they're all doing it. Every one of them. There's one back there doing it. One right there. They started at the very base of the plant and they come up the stem of it. And I'll show you, you know, when it gets to the top and it bursts open. But you got to leave them there and let them dry. You don't pick them when they first pop open. You leave them there till they get good and dried out. Then you can break them off and you can plant them. Because I was going to try to give my son some of them, But, you know, I can't do it now. It's going to be a while before they reach the top, burst open, and then dry. So it's going to be a little bit. I may even have something out here that I can pull out. I don't know. You know, I got moonflower zinnias. I don't think I want to pull any out of there. The moonflowers suck up all the moisture and don't give the zinnias or the marigolds a chance. Now see, I got marigolds and zinnias there. Sorry about that. I start breathing this air and I start coughing. And I'm hoping that is my nasturtium coming up. I'm not sure if that is or not. Have to wait and see, I guess. But I planted 3 or 4 seeds in there. So we'll see. And there goes my garlic. I'm thinking those zinnias, I can transplant a few of them. Just to make sure the other ones survive, maybe. Look at my sunflowers here. And mind you, I just threw a handful of all different kind of flower seed in there just to see what would come up. And that was in wood chips. I mean, there's a good inch or more of wood chips there. And I just threw the seed in. And I guess in watering it, it washed the seed down. And there's my celery. That's the first one I planted. And there's the second one right there beside it. And it's doing good too. It didn't have too many roots on it when I put it out here, but it did have roots. So I went ahead and planted it so it wouldn't rot in the water. So I think it does okay. And see that poor tulip, it gets too hot on them and they just die off. They can't handle the heat. That's the reason I don't buy any more tulip bulbs. But I got flower bulbs coming up here right beside the little rose bush. Look at there that I planted. It likes it there so far. And these rose bushes definitely love it. The mums, my white rose or yellow rose. It looks yellow when it first opens and then it gets white. The longer it's open, the whiter it gets. But they say that's supposed to be a yellow rose. And there goes that rose bush. So it looks like the 4 rose bushes out here is going to make it. Now let's get this thing set up and see if I can finish planting this pot. Of course you can't see it, but get a stick that I can stick down in there and make a hole. See, I don't have to water it now because I've already soaked that dirt and everything down good. And I'm planting them just a little bit deeper than they were. So that'll help too. Get those roots down in there. Since that dirt is already wet, I don't have to the dirt all over the place. Find my pot, see? So far I've got one right there, a little one right there. The two big ones, I got one over there and one there, so that's five marigold plants planted in there. So some of them ought to survive. All of them probably will, but just to be safe, I always put a few extra. And little buddy was here a few minutes ago, but he's taken off. He got his breakfast and he left. So, and I might put a piece of that over there. Seemed like I broke a piece off and, yeah, I broke a piece off and put it in here. And I got some other flower seed coming up right there. Right along with the mint, and I got a piece of the coleus right there. Yeah, we may do that. I wonder how it would, because some of this needs to be broke down anyway. There, take that little top right off. Go over here and stick it in the pot. And it'll root. As wet as that dirt is, it'll root. Move this chair out of the way. There. Let me find another stick. Tools of the trade. Sticks and spoons. I'm always coming up with sticks and spoons to plant stuff with. Now, hopefully that will root. And I'll have marigolds and coleus in that pot. That'll be pretty. I think it'll be pretty. It'll be just as pretty, if not prettier, than the artificial flowers. Because even though the coleus is not really going to have flowers on it, the marigolds will. So, I need to get out here one day and grill out something. I haven't cleaned it since I was out here the other day, and I grilled out I think I grilled out a steak. I don't know how leaves get in there. But they do. There, that's ready to go for the next time I want to use it. Yeah, I think those will look good. I would put some of those zinnias in that little pot, but I'm afraid they'll get too tall. You know what? What the heck? Let's stick one or two in there and just see what happens. Put them down a little bit lower than what they were planted because they looked like they were going to fall over anyway. And if they get real big, so what? And if they get big, so what? It's in my yard. I'm allowed to do that. It's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. Oh, it didn't go in there like I wanted it to. I mean, it'll probably be all right, but I wish it went in there a little bit better. Get that big root down in there. Now, that's the way I want it. So we got a pot full of flowers planted right there. And that dirt is wet enough that they should be fine. Don't have to water it. It's already been watered. That's been watered. And I watered a bunch of stuff Monday. So I don't want to overwater. If you overwater your plants, that will kill them. Just like not having enough water. And I think that's what one of my viewers did. She messaged me, and she had planted a tomato plant, and my hands are filthy, but my hair is down in my face. Said that she had planted a tomato plant on her patio in a pot, and she kept watering it. Just about every day she put water on there, and she said her plant died. Well, unfortunately, I think what the problem was, she put too much water on it. Because if you have it too wet, too much water, you literally will drown your plants. So twice a week in a dry area should be enough to water your plants. If you're in a real humid area, and depending on your soil, if you have soil that stays damp, even in a pot, you probably don't even need to water but once a week. And then I would use my compost tea or whatever I use to fertilize my plants with. But yeah, overwatering will drown your plants and they'll die. They'll die quicker if you overwater them than they will if they don't get quite enough water. So you got to find the happy medium between there. Don't water them too much, and don't dry them out. If you stick your finger in your dirt, say 2 inches down, and it's still dry, water your plant. If you stick your finger down about 2 inches in your pot, and that water, it feels damp, you don't need to water it. That soil, that dirt has enough water, moisture in it that you don't need to water that plant. So I hope that helps somebody. My area here, the dirt that I had starting out, it dried out every day. Bone dry. So until I started building my own soil with the native soil and cardboard and compost and all that stuff, it was hard to get anything to live. But after I built my own soil with the compost, the cardboard, the native soil, the leaves, and the dry wood matter and all that, my pots, the dirt stays moist longer. Plus, fixing a reservoir in the bottom of my buckets and the bottom of my totes helps tremendously here in the heat that we have. Because when it gets real hot, all of a sudden the rain stops, everything burns up, and if you can't keep moisture in the soil, in your pots or your totes that your plants are in, they're going to die. So, with that, I'm going to wish y'all a blessed day. Please like, share, and subscribe to my videos. And I hope I had given somebody a few tips that might help them with their planting this summer. So, thanks for hanging out with me and watching my insanity. I mean, I probably don't garden like anybody else, but I get it done. And most of the time my plants grow and they produce, so it makes me happy. So, I'm going to go ahead and end the video. Have a blessed day, and I'll see you on my next one. Bye now.